You've seen that guy working from a beach pretending money just shows up while he relaxes. Yeah, what you're actually looking at is a full-time job, just edited nicely to look like freedom. Because most of this so-called passive income you see online is just regular work. Wearing sunglasses looks cool from far away, but up close it's the same effort with better lighting. The internet just takes normal businesses like Airbnb, dropshipping, content sites, adds a few automation tools, and suddenly calls them passive income like effort just quietly disappeared overnight. But the moment you stop working and everything stops making money, that's not passive. That's just a job where you're both the employee and the confused manager. You didn't escape work. You just hired yourself, becoming both the boss and the worker. Which sounds impressive until you realize neither of you gets a break. Because the real thing nobody tells you is that time is the actual asset here. Money comes back eventually, but the hours you keep trading away quietly never return. So you might be making money on paper, but if it's eating up your time at the same speed, you're not building freedom. You're just getting paid to stay busy in a slightly smarter way. So if you're making decent money but giving all your time in return, congratulations. You've basically created a system where income looks good, but your actual freedom quietly stays exactly where it was.
Take Airbnb, for example. Sounds simple. You buy a place, list it online, and people just show up and pay you while you sit back and enjoy the income.
But what you actually created is a small hotel where you are somehow the receptionist, the cleaner, the customer support, and the emergency contact all at the same time. And at some random hour when something goes wrong, you're the one getting pulled back in because apparently your passive income also comes with night shifts. On average, this ends up taking a decent chunk of your week, which already starts sounding less like passive income and more like something you need to manage constantly. And when you actually break it down, the money looks impressive at first, but once you compare it against the time you're putting in, it starts looking a lot more average. So instead of buying financial freedom, what you actually bought is a system where strangers keep showing up and you're somehow responsible for keeping them comfortable every single time. And the more you look at it, the more it starts feeling less like an investment and more like something that constantly depends on you just to keep functioning normally. Now shift that same idea into something like dropshipping, where you're not even dealing with property, just products moving from one place to another through you. On the surface, it looks even better. Products move, money comes in, and it feels like you don't really have to do much once everything is set up. But the moment something slows down or breaks in that chain, you're suddenly the one dealing with questions, complaints, and everything in between, even though you don't control most of it, because you don't control the product. You don't control delivery, but somehow you still end up handling all the problems when things go wrong, which is a very convenient setup, just not for you. Because now you're dealing with ads, customers, refunds, complaints, basically everything that comes with running a business, except the one thing you'd expect, actual control over the product. And which is why this isn't really a product business, it's an attention business. The only thing that actually matters is whether people are seeing what you're selling. And the moment that attention stops, everything else stops with it. No ads means no traffic, and no traffic means your income disappears almost instantly. So calling this passive income is a bit generous, because what you're really in is a system where you constantly have to keep things running just to stay in place. And when you look at how much time this actually takes on a weekly basis, it starts looking less like freedom and more like something you have to actively manage every day. And on top of that, your entire setup depends on platforms you don't control, so the moment something changes on their side, your income can shift without warning. So after all that, the obvious question becomes whether passive income is even real, or just something that sounds good until you actually look at how it works. And the honest answer is real passive income exists. It just looks incredibly boring compared to everything you've been shown so far. Instead of building something yourself, you just buy into a system where thousands of companies are already working, and your role is simply to stay invested while everything runs. Which basically means other people are doing the work, building products, running operations, and you're just quietly benefiting from all of it without being involved day to day. And the time it takes from you is almost nothing. You set it up once, and after that, there's very little you actually need to do regularly. The returns are not dramatic. They don't spike overnight, but they move steadily over time, which makes it reliable, even if it doesn't feel exciting in the moment. And the reason most people ignore this is because it feels like nothing is happening. There's no activity, no urgency, just slow progress that doesn't trigger excitement. We're used to linking effort with reward, so when something doesn't demand constant action, it feels wrong, like you're missing something or not doing enough. So when you're told to just invest and wait, your brain quietly starts rejecting it because it doesn't match the pattern you've been trained to believe. Right. Which is why people end up choosing complicated systems that keep them busy instead of simple ones that actually work, because activity feels productive, even when it's not. So people would rather spend time running ads, answering messages, fixing problems than sit quietly and let something grow slowly, which is kind of ironic when you think about it. So if you step back and actually compare everything side by side, the difference becomes very clear. It's not about income anymore. It's about what that income costs you. Imagine a simple way to look at all of this, where one side represents the time you put in, and the other reflects what you actually get back in terms of freedom. And on one side, you have things like jobs, Airbnb, dropshipping, where the effort stays high and the system depends on you constantly being involved. And even if the income looks decent, the freedom stays limited because the moment you step away, everything slows down or stops completely. And on the other side, you have something like index funds, where the effort is minimal, and once it's set up, it doesn't require constant attention. And the result is something that slowly builds over time, without pulling you back in every day, which is what actual freedom starts to look like. And so the real question isn't just how much money you're making, it's how much time and stress you're trading to get it, which most people conveniently ignore. So if you strip everything down to the basics, what you're really looking at are just different types of systems, each one asking something different from you in return. Airbnb is essentially a hospitality job where you're constantly involved in making sure things run smoothly, even if it looks passive from the outside. Dropshipping is basically a marketing job where everything depends on attention, and the moment that attention stops, the system stops working with it. And index funds are one of the few things that actually behave like passive income, where your involvement is minimal and the system continues without you. So if you're choosing something that requires constant effort, that's completely fine. Just don't lie to yourself by calling it passive, when it clearly isn't you. Because if your phone has the power to interrupt your day at any moment, then whatever you've built still depends on you more than you think. So, if you'd rather not figure all of this out the hard way later when fixing mistakes becomes expensive, it might make sense to start paying attention to what your income is actually demanding from you right now. Because the earlier you adjust small things in how you build income, the less painful it becomes later, compared to trying to fix everything after it's already deeply dependent on your time. So at that point, it really comes down to a simple choice, whether you want something that keeps you busy all the time or something that quietly works in the background. Or you can keep doing what most people do, trust that everything will somehow work out on its own, without really checking whether the system behind it even makes sense. And if you've actually tried any of these before, it would be interesting to know what your real experience looked like, not the polished version, but what it actually took from you. And if you prefer content that focuses more on how things actually work instead of how they're sold, you'll probably want to stick around for the next 120.